Please welcome Mayor Muriel Bowser to the stage.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, thank you for being here.
Great to see you, thank you.
Take a seat. Welcome back to MPW. I know you have been here in previous years, and we're thrilled and very honored that you made time for us today.
Well, I like to say welcome home.
Thank you. We've had a really brilliant few days here. So we're talking at a complex moment for DC. There is a lot going on. We've seen around the city over the past few days there are still National Guard troops in the streets as a result of the federal intervention back in August. The city has undergone multiple waves of federal layoffs, the most recent announced last week as a result of the shutdown. How would you describe the mood in the city right now?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for having me, and thanks for choosing Washington. It's always good to have the world's most powerful women in your city. And I would say people are very anxious. It's an unsettling time, and I would point directly to the shifting footprint of the federal government in Washington. You're quite right to say we're not exactly a city, not quite a state. 700,000 people live here. I function as the mayor, the county executive, and the governor, yet we don't have a voting member of Congress, and we're not represented in the Senate at all. We are a jurisdiction of people who pay their taxes, serve in wars, but aren't fully represented, and we pay our own way. Sometimes it's a misconception about Washington that we are a ward of the federal government, that we get some large federal largesse to function, and that couldn't be further from the truth. So we function like a state in every way, except we don't have voting representation, and we're not fully autonomous. And we're also proud to host the federal government. And so we closed out last year, fastest growing jurisdiction in the nation. You know, some people think it's all Texas or all Florida, but it was us who was growing the fastest. And our schools, we have been on a 15-year transformation of public education in the city. Our kids have rebounded from COVID faster than most jurisdictions and faster than our peer jurisdictions. We have attracted great businesses, and we're seeing a shift there too. So our big concern started with DOGE cuts.
Of course.
And a number, many hundreds, and in some cases thousands, if you include the whole region of people, have been impacted by that. So these are very tenured and experienced people, and mid-career, late career, early career, it spreads the gamut. And it is our job now to make sure that that very talented group of people stays in our region.
And that's very tricky, I would imagine.
It's very tricky.
So talk to me a bit about how you're doing that.
Well, we're doing it in a number of ways. First of all, I call it being sticky. We need to be a region that says people love their neighborhoods. That's why they live here. They love their schools. They love the arts and culture that are available in Washington. And they are used to having a good paying job and access to good paying jobs. And so our job is to make sure that that talent, known as top in the nation, stays right here, and that we make sure that all of the opportunities they're being connected to. So about 2 weeks ago, we launched the talentcapital.ai initiative. It's a regional approach using AI to take people who are available and looking and want to stay in the region with opportunities. Our business community has been a tremendous partner with us. Our higher ed community has been a tremendous partner with us to make it seamless for people to take the friction out of the job seeking process and talent seeking process for both sides.
I want to talk, that's a fantastic initiative.
Yes.
And I hope that really does prevent a brain drain. I want to talk a bit about the intervention. It did drastically decrease violent crime according to statistics, the federal intervention, although it's really worth noting that crime was very much on the decline in DC before that happened. But you've made it very clear that you don't support the use of National Guards for public safety. Why do you think that is? Why do you not think the National Guard is right for that role?
Well, I don't think it's legal. Let me start there. For the National Guard to police Americans on American soil. And the mission and the way we use the National Guard, by the way, unlike most states where a governor can call up is the chief of its National Guard, of his or her National Guard in D.C., our D.C. National Guard reports to the president. So while I can request the National Guard, they are federal, completely federally operated. And so in D.C. it's a little different than in other places for the D.C. National Guard. So we use the Guard to respond to emergencies. We use the Guard for large-scale events. We do not use the Guard to police our local laws.
So what has it been like for you seeing the National Guard on the streets over the past couple of months? How has that felt?
Well, I think for me it's less important than how other people in Washington and our fellow Americans feel about what that means for our democracy. So we should all be concerned about the military being used because it's a slippery slope. You use it for crowd control one day or for presence the next day. It's not a long jump to using it in other ways that could interfere with the very nature of American democracy.
And it's been announced that the troops will pull back by the end of fall, or we won't be seeing them on the streets soon in D.C. How do you prevent an escalation in crime when that does happen?
Well, our issue, and we have, and you rightly noted, that we saw really precipitous drops in crime for 2 straight years leading up to the federal surge in August. And we saw even more of a decrease, accelerated decrease since then. And nobody is going to complain about violent crime going down. But there is a balance between making sure that people aren't scared to leave their homes or people aren't scared to come to work because these are law-abiding people that don't want to be harassed in doing that. And I think a very important distinction also has to be made between law enforcement and immigration enforcement. Because I think what we're seeing is just devastating impact on unprecedented immigration enforcement. And that has an impact, obviously, on individuals, on their families, on their ability to work, but it also has a big impact on business. And I don't know that people are talking about that a lot. Organized business, chambers aren't talking about it.
What do you see the impact being in D.C. specifically on business?
People aren't going to work.
Because they're scared.
Because they're scared. And I think that we're going to see the tails of that for a long time, whether we're talking about the restaurant industry or hospitality and tourism, construction, you name it. But that's a larger issue, and I think right now people are focused kind of downstream, and we need to focus upstream on this issue. How are we going to have reasonable immigration policies in our nation? Where people who are here, who've been here a long time, are they going to have a pathway to citizenship or not?
Do you think that's realistic during the next 3 to 4 years?
I don't know. In my view, it's realistic. If I was going to Congress to work every day, it would be one of my priorities.
In recent weeks, President Trump has said he's prepared to send troops into other cities, into Memphis, into Portland and Chicago. Do you speak to the governors of those cities? And regardless, what would your advice be to them on how to manage this really unprecedented situation?
Well, I talk to any mayor or any official who wants to talk about issues in D.C., but I do caution people not to extrapolate our experience with any other jurisdiction because we're quite unique.
Final question on this. You've said that the past few months have led to a breakdown in trust between D.C. residents and the police. Tell me a bit about what that looks like. I guess it's the fear that you just referenced and how you can rebuild that if you can.
Well, the relationship between police and community is always fragile. And we're proud in DC because we've been on a more than 20-year journey on building a police force that's professional, well-trained, and focused on constitutional policing. And our police, for example, and for a number of years since I've been mayor, so it's been 10 years at least, all of our patrol officers wear body-worn camera. We have a police complaints board. It's transparent and easy to make complaints. We're transparent with the footage that comes from our body-worn camera. And that holds both the police and the community accountable in interactions. When you have masked individuals where nobody knows who they are or what they're doing, that breaks down trust. And anytime there's adjacency with our local police, that causes a problem because in the average person's mind, it's all mixed together. And so cities are safer when people will call the police and when people will cooperate with the police. And when we have a breakdown in that trust, it makes us less safe.
So how do you go about rebuilding it?
Every day we have to, it's not easy. It's not a silver bullet, if you will. Trust is built every interaction at a time. And my chief has the approach of just flooding communities, over talking, if you will, and being present and being accountable for keeping crime down.
Some people have commented that your relationship with President Trump seems different this time around, more cooperative. What would your response be to that?
Well, most people haven't experienced Trump 1 and Trump 2 in the seat that I'm sitting in. I don't think anybody has, actually. And so the thing I know about being mayor and being in leadership in a very high-stakes environment like D.C. is, I've learned to trust my experience and my judgment and know the playing field, know the board, if you will. And a play that worked when the board was set up like this is different than a play that will work up when the board is set up like that. So I've had the experience of working with every iteration of leadership in Washington. Republican speaker, Democratic speaker, Republican leader, you name it. In 3 presidents, including 2 Trumps.
Exactly. What's been your experience of the differences between Trump administration 1 and Trump administration 2? Well,
in Trump 1, there were more checks. So the Congress was being the Congress, and there were checks on, there wasn't kind of an unfettered executive. So I think you have a different setup in 2 branches of government than you did in 2017.
And what's your approach to negotiating with the president of either side when, maybe the interests of the city, as you see them, are different to, the interests of the federal government? How do you approach that negotiation stance?
Well, the interest in the city to answer your question, it's the same. Like I tell the federal, my approach is to, like I told you, this is who we are. Because I have to clear up a lot of misconceptions about D.C. I say this is what we need, and this is how you can help, and this is how you can stay out of the way. So no matter who it is, that is our approach. But the interests of America and Washington, D.C. are aligned.
Even if it sometimes doesn't feel that way?
Yeah, they're aligned.
Okay.
We love America. We love freedom. We pay our taxes. We go to work. We raise our kids. We want safe streets. We want clean rivers and clean air, great parks, great transportation. Our interests are aligned.
You've mentioned earlier on about DC statehood, and you've been very vocal in wanting that. Has the recent federal surge impacted the way that you plan to advocate for that going forward with President Trump and beyond?
Well, right now, the way we talk about statehood, I think, has changed in my tenure, where we used to just talk about us, our lack of representation or our lack of full autonomy. I think we have been successful, and unfortunately, national attention-getting events like of the past weeks focus the rest of America on how they lose by us not being a state. And that means, there are 700,000 Americans who don't have a voice in Congress, and that voice could impact a larger national agenda. Now, it's assumed that we would have 2 Democratic senators. That's probably true, but maybe it's not. And that having those 2 more voices in the Senate may make a difference in, how we approach war and peace in the world. How, who sits on the Supreme Court, who the director or secretary of this or that agency and issue is. So I think the rest of America sees that by us not having our 2 senators, we are less able to move an agenda.
Is it an issue that you're advocating for actively right now with President Trump?
I'm actively trying to keep them out of our affairs.
Understood. You've been a mayor for a decade now, as I mentioned, and you've seen so many overlapping crises, whether it's the pandemic or economic volatility, January the 6th. Which has been the most challenging for you personally as a leader?
They've all been challenging. I feel blessed, and I think all of the leaders here probably have had this experience in one way or another. Like when you have hard things, first you feel sorry for yourself a little bit. Oh man, woe is me. Why is this so hard? And then you realize, hey, all right, let me figure this out. I know how to do this. And then at some point you say, I'm glad it's me who's sitting here and who can lead in this moment. And I think over the course of my tenure, I've had that experience a number of times where, whew, man, this is hard.
Take us inside a specific moment where you felt that.
I've felt it a lot of times. Like dealing with a global pandemic, like nobody thinks that's going to happen. For example, when I first became mayor, my health director took me on a tour of one of our buildings. And it was this big, beautiful, empty space, built out, nice, monitors everywhere. And I said, like, what is this? And she said, well, this is our HEC. I said, well, what is a HEC? What the heck is a HEC? And she said, this is our Health Emergency Communication Center. Mm-hmm. And the whole reason we had that center was in case of a pandemic, that we would be able to convene everybody in the government in this place to deal with a health emergency. Mm-hmm. And then we had one. Mm-hmm. And so leaders, if you love politics and policy, you get a job like mine, but you're not a health expert, right? And so what our government over the course of leaders before me was prepared for this moment, mm-hmm. not just with equipment, but I probably hired the best person in the world to lead DC during that time. I didn't know that we were going to have an emergency, but it turned out that way. And so that was a moment. I remember at the time, I think I was in my second term, and at the end of it, I was like, well, this COVID, despite like shutting down our government and wreaking havoc on our economy and thousands of families being impacted, it also, like on a very personal, political level, like it took like 2 years of my agenda where we had to, and everybody knows this, when there's emergency, you respond, but then like there are other things that you're not doing. And that was a lesson.
And so that's really interesting, because my next question was going to be, what's been, in your eyes, your biggest success over the course of your terms, and also your biggest mistake, or the thing you wish you'd been able to achieve that you hadn't? So maybe let's start there and then go on to biggest success.
Well, it's hard to just get a few, but I did a little retrospective on 10 years in office. And one of them, I would just put in the bucket of keeping promises, and especially keeping promises to people who don't think you will. And in my city, there's a community called Ward 8, or some call it East of the River, or every city has one that has been underinvested in. and people just haven't had as much opportunity. And I promised at the start of my term that I would do more for Ward 8 than any mayor ever has. And I can say that that's true, that we have invested over $1 billion in a transformational economic development project. We brought a, major league team there. We built a new hospital. We've added hundreds of units of housing. We've driven down crime, and until this year, we've driven down unemployment to record lows. So I would say that. Others would say I've been a sports mayor, so I saved 2 teams from leaving. I'm bringing another one home and building a new stadium. So people would definitely say that. And I think that I feel proud that I feel like I've raised DC's profile in all the right ways. And when I became mayor, I was concerned that we weren't the global capital that we should be. And now it's my job to make sure that that's not lost to just wild rhetoric about our city that's so untrue. Nobody comes here and says DC is Baghdad or that it's not clean. It's just that's crazy talk. We have one of the most beautiful cities, wide avenues, lots of trees, beautiful buildings, and great neighborhoods.
One thing I wanted to ask you about when I was researching this, you talk about promises kept, and you undoubtedly have. How do you deal with the sense of betrayal some residents, of course, feel towards the mayor? So I'm thinking about the fact that this year you had to paint over the Black Lives Matter mural, or you made that decision. What did that feel like to you, and what's your response to people who say they felt let down by that following the events of 2020 and George Floyd?
How do I respond? I tell people, I explain my decisions, and then I move on. Okay.
And if people say they feel very betrayed?
Betrayed?
Yeah, if it's an issue that matters to them deeply.
Well, the thing about making decisions is there are some people who are happy and there are some people who are not. And my job is to do the best that I can for the most people, the fastest.
2 more questions, and then we're going to let you go, Madam Mayor. I have to ask, your current term as mayor ends in January 2027. Are you going to run again?
Well, that's a question that everybody seems to be asking.
Of course.
Yes.
I wonder why.
And I'll answer it at the appropriate time.
Okay. We had, last night on stage at the National Cathedral, we had the former Vice President Kamala Harris, and she was talking about many things, but one of them was the success that Zohran Mamdani has gained for the Democratic Party in New York and how he's reaching new audiences. And I wonder how watching the success of someone like him makes you reflect on your political future and how you might reach new people.
I don't know much about that race. He is an exciting candidate, and just like every big city mayor and mayor of New York City, our biggest city and a very important city, I wish him the best. It looks like he's going to get there. And of course, when I became mayor, I've met, I think, with all of the New York City mayors, before and since, and they've all been very helpful to me, and we would offer any help and support. I think one of the lessons for candidates is just very direct to voter communication that he's very good at, and he has a lot of charisma. That type of charisma, either you have it or you don't, and he has to be the candidate and the mayor that he's going to be, but I don't think it has any impact on the mayor that I am.
Final question. In advance of interviewing you, I spoke to a lot of my friends who live in DC and asked what they would want to ask you, and the one that came up most was, how, given everything that's happened this year, are you going to bring back the spirit of DC?
Oh, I think the spirit of DC is alive and well. Somebody sent me a picture, or maybe I saw it on social media. There was an apartment building in a DC neighborhood that, dozens, it looked like, of people had the DC flag on their balconies. It just made, in every neighborhood, when I go see the DC flag, I know that it is, the spirit is alive and well. In DC, people, just like any other, I think more, are concerned about their neighbors and want to stand shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors. So the spirit that I think is taking a hit is around how can we protect vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm. And how can the very powerful women in this room help you do that? A very final question, because we've got a lot of power here.
Well, I think a few ways. I think that our chambers have to get engaged in this immigration enforcement issue. It's scary, it's terrifying people, it's having real impact on innocent people. It's not an issue of violent crime or not violent crime. And so we have to tame this internal enforcement issue. So I think that's a big thing. I think another one is investing in DC, taking advantage of the talent that's here, thinking about your business, your headquarters in DC. The kind of flip side of when there is a economic slowdown is that it creates opportunities for some that couldn't be in DC before, and now they can. Mm-hmm. They couldn't be on K Street or downtown. Now they might be able to. They hadn't been interested in converting a commercial property into a residential property, and now they see an ability to make a lot of money. So I think for the visionary, it's a very great time to invest in DC.
Madam Mayor, thank you so much for hosting us in DC,
thank you.
And thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.